Welcome back to the Tiberium Hangout. This is Mike. Happy Friday, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well and having a great weekend. Today I want to talk to you about KOs in 2023, 2023. I want to talk about several things. We're going to kind of recap kind of the good and the bad. I'm not going to be one-sided in this, as there are some negative issues surrounding KOs. I think the positives definitely outweigh the negatives, but I'm going to talk about one positive at the end that nobody's really talking about, and it's a big positive that even people that are anti-KO really can't refute. But we're going to discuss this and more about the state of 2023 KOs coming up. Now, I've made several videos talking about this in the past, and so some of this will be just kind of covering the same points in the past. But I want to say that when Masterpiece Transformers come out, they're very expensive. $200-$300 and all that kind of stuff. And so with that, I was one that waited on MP36, and I got the KO. I never had the official. I'm very happy with the KO of it, but this adds broad appeal, or a broad audience that could actually afford it now. When a KO comes out at half, when some of these are $60. They were $60 when they were available for sale on ShowZ and a couple of other places. Then with that, that's much more affordable than $250. At $250, I wasn't touching it. I didn't think it was worth $250, but at $60, between $60 and $100, I bought several different ones, decided which one I liked the most. And Infinite Transformations is a pretty good one, but the one I liked the most was the Toy House Factory. But this makes Masterpiece Transformers more affordable to people. And one of the things I want to point out was that when I got the MP01 Optimus Prime, and then they say they're going to put the Carbots out for the same price. I paid like $63 for my Optimus Prime, and then this small piece of no die-cast plastic is supposed to cost the same amount that big 12-inch Optimus Prime did. That didn't make sense in my mind, so I held off until I found the KOs, and I got the KOs for almost half the price, like $40 instead of $63. But KOs also make it available for people who bought the official, kind of like what I'm sort of doing now, to get the KO also, compare the differences, but have one for each mode for a much more affordable price. So with this brings in a lot more collectors to the Masterpiece scale. So a lot of people that would not have touched Masterpiece at $200 a figure are jumping in at $60 to $100 range and enjoying it. And for the most part, the quality's there. We're going to get into that here in a bit, but for the most part, the quality's there for KOs this day and age. Early on, it wasn't the same story, but with that, they get their hands on it, say, hey, Masterpieces for me, I like these. These figures are great, they're awesome. I know they're complex, and the transformations take, anywhere between 7 minutes to 35 minutes to transform them, but it's still an amazing representation and brings in collectors that would have just been mainline or legends jumping into the Masterpiece because of KO, and I've seen it time and time again. So the next thing I want to talk about when it comes to knockoffs or KOs, that this is now one of those things that we get a figure that hasn't been put out for a long time. So this Quietus was, Fans Toys Quietus was really getting expensive on the secondary market. I didn't watch it as close because I wasn't in the market for another one, but when I found out they were doing knockoffs for cheaper than I got my first one, I had to get at least one of each of the different styles. So there's a couple of things that came about this. First off, when Fans Toys wasn't reissuing this figure, or if they did reissue it, they priced it at $300, or the vendors or whatever, the distributors priced it at $300. However, we couldn't get it for less than $300 when they were reissuing these things, these bad boys. And so when they got knocked off for $115, then Fans Toys decided to put them back out. So it's one of those weird things that now it's availability to people at an affordable price, when the other one, just for whatever reason, Fans Toys wouldn't put it back out. Well, I don't really know exactly why. Well, I do know why, but Fans Toys reissues their own too to try to snuff out the competition. But the story behind this whole Fans Toys knockoff, my understanding is that the people that are making it actually have a claim to it and a right to make them because they're their designs. They are part of the design team and they didn't get adequately compensated. That's the story I'm hearing. Until I can see some proof to rebut that, I'm going to go with it. When it comes to Takara, they aren't putting out their figures, some old figures. They're not reissuing those again, which I don't know if I'd really want Takara to just have a steady flow of reissuing figures over and over and over. But the fact that KOs exist mean that there's something out there to buy. Would it be better to have some KOs available that you can buy versus there is nothing at all to buy? No access to these figures at all? I mean, a lot of people that are anti-KO are perfectly happy with not having any available stock anywhere in the world for collectors to purchase. They're fine with that because they've got their own. They don't care about anyone else or anyone else's collection. But see, with the KO companies making stuff available that Takara refuses to reissue, and I believe Takara refuses to issue them the same reason that Fans Toys does, so you have value in your product. If you keep putting your product out and you just flood the market with it all the time, there's no value to it, and everybody's going to wait for a sell. Well, Takara seems to sell out almost all the time with everything they put out, and that's by design. They don't overproduce. See, old figures that never get reissued get very expensive, and those are prime targets for getting knocked off. And for that, I'm perfectly fine with it. And it's odd that in my mind, I would think, why would you want to reissue your figure if you know someone's knocking it off? But Fans Toys and Takara both know that their figures are always going to be worth more than a knockoff. Even if the knockoff is better, which we're about to talk about, their figures are always going to be worth more because they're official, and there are certain countries or subregions or areas that collectors only want official and will not buy the KOs. Or third party. Or Fans Toys at all, by the way. Alright, now we're getting into KOs make improvements. So, the KO companies improve their stuff along the way. A lot of people complain about this Trax. I have both the KO and the official. Now, it was like I bought the egg first, then I bought the chicken. I bought the KO before I got the official. I got the official for $10 because that's how little people think of that figure for whatever reason. I don't think it's a bad figure. I don't think it's great. I'm sure Fans Toys made one or X-Translots made one. It'd be better and it'd have some diecast in it. But this figure has rubber tires on the KO, but the official one had hard plastic tires. I understand that's the difference between the two that you can really spot. The rest are very similar. I think both versions have a nice paint job and all that kind of stuff. But Trax, it's a nice looking figure, and for me, it's not a high priority figure. I don't even care if another one's made because that one's perfectly fine for me for a long time, and it's perfectly fine that there's KOs that exist that are even better than the original for collectors that just started collecting, in the past 5 years, because this is like a 7-year-old figure. The next improvement that they make is the ability to upscale and downscale. Now, I talked about this last week, which was kind of a precursor to this video, but the ability to upscale to 12-inch scale and give collectors the option to have a 12-inch figure or downscale it to more of a chug, which the MP10V is a downscale to chug, which I think was KBB that made that one. And then this is the Weijang MPP10. And then Weijang made a whole slew of these, and there was one called Tanaka that made a couple, and then there was Seekers, Robot Hero. Go watch that whole video. I break it all down. I did a little bit of more research. I forgot what the name of the stuff was that I bought so many years ago, but the ability to upscale them or downscale them. Why does Takara not just put them out in 3 or 4 different scales? Because it costs money. It costs money for the mold and tooling, and that's a big part of it. These KO companies are willing to pay to get a new mold made in a different scale, and I thought that was going to keep them safe. Well, that does sort of keep them safe in a way, but then you start tampering with some big licenses. Weijang messing with old Iron Man. Bouncing back to the MP36, I want to say that MP36 Megatron had some issues, sort of. It was a good figure, but I did not like the flat matte look to him. So there were a total of 5 knockoffs of this that were made. There was a straight up KO, which was terrible. It's a floppy mess, but it still got the job done if you just wanted to buy a figure for $100 and have it on your shelf. Then there was the Toy House Factory. There was the Infinite Transformations, IT. I don't think Transform Element won. It was Infinite Transformations that made one. And then there was Magten. And then there was another one. I don't remember what the other one's called. I've got pretty much all of them that I listed. The Magten's the one I like the most. And the reason I like that one so much is because it is a little bit shinier and all that kind of stuff. So they did make improvements to it. Now, nobody straight up knocked off their Plus. And so I'm getting into this. I've heard of Plus knockoffs. I've never seen them. And so with that, I thought I bought knockoffs. But then I was at one of my local comic shops. They were telling me that they had the pluses, and everything about their packaging, everything about the figure, everything was exactly the same as mine. And I just assumed I bought the knockoff. I got them cheap enough. I mean, I got them for like 60 when they're normally selling for 80, but that was kind of a good price to me. But I guess I didn't get knockoffs. I guess they didn't knock off the Plus series. So if they did, I just didn't see it. If they did, I completely missed Soundwave or Shockwave. Shockwave getting knocked off with the purpler. But this one here is supposed to look more like the toy, and it's not fully vac metallized, but there are the torso, the arms, and the thighs, and I think the feet are all vac metallized. So now we get into knockoff companies that are selling Takara product. Like, this literally is produced in the same factory as Takara. And when the KO came out like 2 or 3 weeks after I got my official and I bought the KO, I can't find any difference between the two, and there's just no way they were able to get the tooling together and did not reverse engineer this figure in 2 weeks. That's just not what happened. These are all Takara, even the ones that were sold as fourth party. And it was one of those things that I believe, this is just me, I believe that Takara sells off either excess stock that they could not get sold, or they didn't even box these up, or they find a flaw in it that doesn't meet their standards. Now, I know you think it's funny that Takara has quality control standards. Yes, they do, just because some of the plastic isn't the best that they've used, and they've had a couple of issues along the way. Takara is a good company, good products for the most part. And I haven't had very many issues with my Takara issues. I haven't had any issues with these. I mean, the feet aren't the greatest, and yeah, it does kind of open from the side. It's not the best design in the world, but on my shelf, I'm looking at it right now, and it still looks pretty good. Same thing I think kind of happens with Yes Model. Now, a lot of people say that Make Toys is Yes Model, or they're very closely associated, which I had no idea. When I bought my Yes Models, I had no idea Yes Model and Make Toys were a thing. Yes Model was a knockoff, because so many of these knockoff companies don't even go by a name. So at the time I bought these, so I did get these 88 a piece. Now they're like 50 each, which is crazy, but you can pick them up on Show's Eve for like $50 a piece if they're not sold out. And so with this, it got me thinking though that it would really be nice, why doesn't Yes Model or even Make Toys reissue the other one? I mean, we could get this Contact Shot. Like, it shouldn't cost any more to make Contact Shot than it takes to make the other two Headmasters they made. Now, it's Target Master here, but why not make Contact Shot? That would be awesome. I think a lot of people would want it. And I don't think the market was ready for this figure. See, the market was not ready for this figure when it was put out. The market is overdue for a reissue of this right now. But let Yes Model do it. Let them knock it off. Let them pay a premium to Make Toys, which I think is what happens. Or if Make Toys is going under Yes Model, which is a rumor I've heard, I can't validate that. If that's the case, just get it out one way or another. Now, the other side of the coin, knockoffs do hurt the companies sometimes. I mean, it is going to take away some of the consumer base that was buying the original. But the vast majority of people buying knockoffs would have never paid for the original in the first place. So I was going to pass on this, and I did pass on this till a knockoff came along. And my thing was, I still don't like the bot design of this one, but I do like the alt mode design. I think the alt mode is a little better than the Fans Toys version. The Fans Toys bot mode I like better, even though it does have very little articulation. But when it comes to knocking off without, say, Takara getting a kickback from it, without Fans Toys, like right now it's going on Fans Toys. Fans Toys save a lot of money by not properly paying their designers, is the theory there. So they've saved some money in the long run, and it's not really hurting them. So now it's getting into the big point. So this is a point on this topic nobody talks about. Nobody's really talking about it. And that is that if a company gets knocked off, or what's going on with Fans Toys isn't technically knockoff, but we're calling it that anyway. If a company gets knocked off, especially with Masterpiece Transformers, it gives them an incentive to put out other figures and other molds. Instead of just sitting back and reissuing your old stuff over and over and over, which of course is not something Fans Toys likes to do. They don't like to reissue a lot. But when it comes to Takara, we haven't seen Takara coming around with 2.0s and 3.0s, putting new characters out. And I think Takara has a little bit more control over their KO market than, say, Fans Toys doesn't have any control in this situation. But it's an incentive to put new characters and new figures out. And that's why we're getting new characters and new figures, which is a good thing. there's a lot of stuff to be excited for to come from Fans Toys. There's a lot of stuff to be excited for to come from Takara. But when it comes to Fans Toys, the bigger incentive to put new figures out is that I don't believe designers that are knocking off the older figures now are going to have the rights and claim to the newer figures that are out. So that's a belief of mine, because I don't think anything going forward is going to be exactly the same as it was before those designers split and left. And then again, of course, those knockoffs might be that might just be a whole made-up story just to make it look like it's good and on the up and up, and it's just completely shady with the Fans Toys knockoffs, because nobody really knows. Now, a lot of people are excited for the Skyfire, Jetfire coming from Takara, and even more people are excited for a KO. Now, generally it takes about 10 months from the release of a Takara figure to see the first knockoff of it. But this is a big one. This is Takara's biggest figure that they've made for the Masterpiece Transformers line, or among the biggest figures. And so with that, it might be a long time till we see the KO of this. So that could be a longer wait to 10 months. It could be well over a year, into a year and a half. Who knows? But pretty much everything Takara almost always gets knocked off. So I think it's always fun to talk about KOs. There's not many other people out there just talking about KOs. There are some reviews when they pop up, when a KO shows up and it's available. People like to review it and stuff, but not much talking about KOs overall. And I support it. I'm okay with it, but I also support Takara. I buy the official and I buy the KO, and I like to do comparisons, and I like to have one for each mode is kind of a direction I'm starting to go. But with that, usually everything getting released these days is already made. So I'm more excited for new characters and new figures that I don't already have. Then I'm curious what you guys think in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Titanium Hanger out.